What's up, guys? Today under Lifestyle, we're going to clean up some shoddy craftsmanship and decide on whether or not I should keep this front bumper or if I should build a new one. Today's video is brought to you by Empire Abrasives. Shaping, polishing, cutting, all of these tasks require good abrasives, and if you're like me, your fabrication projects have a tight budget. Empire Abrasives has high quality products at budget friendly prices, so if you want to save a little bit of money on your next project and get the job done right, make sure you click the link in our description and go to empireabrasives.com to price out how much you can save. I prefer to build as many parts and pieces as I can for all of my 4x4 projects, and this Land Rover Discovery is no different except for one area, and that is the front bumper. I think that this front bumper falls short in some areas and it is very good at others. So I think that the overall fitment, and I think that the dimensions, I think that these angles all look great on this front bumper, but the finish is awful and it really takes away from what this bumper could be. I'm incredibly picky about the overall look and feel of things like bumpers, roof racks, sliders, all that stuff. I mean, even if I was going to build custom fender flares, anything like that, I'm so picky. I'm usually unhappy with the stuff that I see, and I'm only somewhat happy with the stuff that I build. But I do really like the look and the overall shapes and dimension of this bumper. I think that it fits the Land Rover really well. So we're going to try to rehab this thing. I want to do what I can to clean it up, so once we put the new paint on it and we blend everything in really well, that it just looks like $1,000,000. I want it to really look good, and then once it's done and it's bolted back on there, we'll make a decision on whether or not I should keep it, or if you guys want, I'll just build a whole new one from scratch, completely different style, but we'll see what we can do with this one first. I think projects like this, where you're cleaning up old parts to make them look new, is a perfect beginner project. So if you're watching this and you have very little fabrication experience, don't let that discourage you from trying a project like this. As you're gonna see in the video, you don't need a whole lot of skill, you just need a little bit of time, some patience, some elbow grease, and you can get really good professional results with very little money. There isn't really a right or a wrong way to do this, or a right or a wrong tool. I use a whole bunch of different tools for shaping and grinding in order to achieve the look that best reflects my sensibilities and my tastes. So if all you have is an angle grinder or all you have is a die grinder, just get the different abrasive discs and grinding wheels that'll get the job done and make it towards a job that you're proud of whenever you're all done. I just spent the last hour or so roughing everything up, smoothing, shaping a little bit, and this bumper is not as in bad a shape as I thought it was. I mean, there is plenty of work that needs to be done, big gouges, high spots, but really quickly I was able to make this look a lot better with just a couple of basic tools. I used the carbide rotary bit on the end of this to shape a line in the edge here, because half of this was smoothed in, half of it wasn't, and it just looked chunky and terrible. Did the same thing over here. I just gave it a little bit of definition on this edge, and then I used the flap disc to kind of blend it a little bit, and then I used the palm sander to go over and smooth these edges out a little bit more. So I used the palm sander on the entire thing, and it exposed some spots like this. The high spots they're kind of hard to see, and once you go over everything with a palm sander, it takes out the paint from the high spots, and because there's a little bit in the low spots, you can see what needs to be worked on. So there's a couple more spots that need to be worked on with the flap disc, but before I get there, I am going to weld in like 2 locations. This is like one of the only deep spots. It's such a strange place to have a big cut like that too. I do not understand what happened here, because this is a continuous piece of square tube that then merges with this piece here. I don't know what's going on there, but either way, I'm gonna fix it. So I'm gonna get the paint out of there, then I can run a bead across it, sand it down, and that should be good to go. These little spots up here are looking pretty good, but they need a little bit more work. These guys right here. So at least I can run my finger over it, and it's not like this huge build of weld like it was before. But I think I'm gonna get in there with the rotary bit a little bit more, and then just kind of reshape it to make it to where this is a little smoother through here. And this right here, I might have to I might have to weld, we'll see. I'm gonna use the rotary bit on this and kind of work this high edge down a little bit and blend that and see what we need to do. Not all of your fill work on a bumper like this can be taken care of with just a welder and a grinder. Some of it you're going to need to use some body filler in order to truly smooth it out and give it a professional finish. The body filler that I'm using today is actually a spot glaze, and I will put all these products in an Amazon shopping cart in the description, but I like to use higher end brands like U-Pole. I have really good results with their stuff, and the spot glaze is nice because it's a little bit finer and a little bit smoother whenever you sand it. I gave this all night to cure. I wanted that first layer of body filler to have ample time to cure because I wasn't sure how thick anything was gonna be whenever I knocked it back down. I figured it was all gonna be pretty thin, like less than an eighth or so. But now that I've actually knocked the top off of all that body filler, I mean, the thickest spots are probably a 1/16 of an inch. So overnight was a little bit longer than it probably needed, but either way, this first layer that we did is definitely fully cured, and there's only a couple spots that are just a hair low that will go back. We'll wipe a little bit more body filler on there and then let it cure for like 20 or 30 minutes and then rework it right after that. We don't need to give it another night to cure or anything like that. So the reason I pulled off this bull bar was to give us ample room to work. It was only being held on by a couple of tacks anyway, so it was super easy to remove, and it opened up a lot of space and made it to where this is a lot faster project because I wasn't having to work around it. But now we need to relocate it. So I'm gonna bolt this back onto the Discovery, and then I'm going to start tacking that bull bar back together. Also, I got some bigger lights that I want to experiment with in the front, which is why I cut off our light mounts. So I've got some LP6s from Baja Designs. Before I was using LP4s. I love the LP4s. For some reason in my head, a European 4x4 needs big lights. I don't know why that is, but in my head, I see some bigger lights up here. I think that it'll make this look a little bit more European, and I think that it would look really cool. Also, in the background of today's video, you're gonna be hearing a low hum from my fireplace. It is really cold out here, and because we're gonna be painting, because we're gonna be doing body filler, I wanna make sure that we can get the temperature in here to where it's not only more comfortable, but it's also gonna allow this stuff to cure. Sure, some of the people watching this are thinking, man, that guy is picky, and you're not wrong. I'm definitely picky, but in my defense, the longer you fabricate, the more things you build, the more you see these little details, and the more that it's a much more shining problem for you. I notice these little details. I don't judge anyone else for having them, but on my vehicles, I'm very particular in the way they look, and I want to make sure that it looks as professional as I can make right now. And as my skills grow, I want the quality of the projects that I make to grow with them. If you haven't done any body work, it's very simple. You just keep building up the low spots, you keep knocking down the high spots, and eventually everything evens out and it's a nice smooth layer that you can't see under paint. I think I am all done adding body filler to this. I think now I just need to finish sanding it. It's getting super close where it is now. Whenever I run my finger across, it feels super smooth. Things are looking pretty good. I think right there needs a little bit more sanding, but most of this is just extremely close at this point. So I'm pretty sure I can put away the rest of my body filler. I think I can put away the welder. I'm gonna clean this place up a little bit, and then I'm gonna prep this and get it ready for paint. Reassembly is always really tricky for me. You've got all these heavy parts, you've got all this brand new paint. It's so difficult to get everything back on the vehicle, to not scuff it up, to not mess it up. You don't want to drop it. And so it's a little bit frustrating, it's a little bit time consuming, but it's worth going slow. It's worth using things like old towels to cushion the blow between your winch and your new bull bar. And I think that this is something that you will definitely get little chips and dings, but this can easily be cleaned up later. It's just all part of the process. Let's take a minute and just check out the fruits of our labor. Let's see, was it worth it? I think it was way worth it. I think that the bumper looks much better with that bull bar there. I think that it just looked a little plain Jane before, but I think the bull bar really helps complement the rest of the bumper. And because I use so much tube in the rest of the build, I think the bull bar helps add that tube look to this front bumper. These LP6s, a little bit bigger than the LP4s from Baja Designs, and I think that it's a way more appropriate size for such a large-bodied vehicle. It's hard to tell, but a Land Rover Discovery 2 is not a small body. It's pretty big. I mean, these are Super Duty axles. I didn't narrow them or anything, and they fit the tub of this thing perfect. So that tells you how big it is, and I think these larger lights complement that really well. In terms of our seams and whatnot, reshaping these leading edges completely transformed the look of this. The way the bumper looked before was driving me crazy. I was like, it's got such good potential. I mean, the way that guy designed this looks great. It's just, he needed to reshape some of this stuff. And I think that it looks like everything is just perfectly melted together. And that was worth every bit of work that it took to get it to this point. So it's not perfect, and that's not what I'm looking for, is perfection. I just didn't want the inconsistencies to be so glaring. Now I'm going to get a bunch of questions about paint. I have an entire paint video, and I will link that one in this video. So if you guys are curious, that's why I glossed over the paint on this one, because I've already done that topic. But the first coating, whenever I do stuff like this, is all off vehicle. We did two cans of high build primer to fill in any sort of discrepancies. And then I did 5 cans of truck bed coating all in one shot. So all within an hour, all that painting took place. And I do the first coat super, super heavy. In my opinion, this stuff gets way more durable. This is Rust-Oleum truck bed coating. It gets way more durable the higher you make it. The more cans you can put into your project, the more durable it becomes. So the first coat was basically 7 cans, 2 of primer, 5 of the truck bed coating. The second coat that I'm going to do is going to be on vehicle, but I'm going to be doing it whenever I do the second coat on the sliders and the second coat on my rear tire carrier. I'll mask off the entire Land Rover, and I'll do all that in one shot. The reason that I do it that way is because whenever you are moving something heavy like this yourself, you're going to mar up the paint here and there, because this thing is super heavy to get up there, and there's no way you can get it up there without banging and dinging some of it. So that's why I like to do the second coat on vehicle. And like I said, I'll probably get 10 more cans for the second coat, and I'll do all of it. I'll do the rear tire carrier, I'll do the sliders, and I'll do the front bumper all in one shot. Also, this little skid plate, I painted it so it matched, but I'm just going to hang on to this because long term, I'm probably going to end up selling this bumper. I really like the way it looks for now, but I'm going to build something that is 100% my creation, and there's some things that I think could be a little more higher clearance in this. So this skid plate, in my opinion, doesn't do anything. It's just for looks, and so I'm going to keep it off. This is just going to be for the next guy that buys this bumper from me. They can inherit the skid plate as well, and they can decide to use it if they want to. I hope you guys enjoyed the video so far, but now I'm going to take a couple minutes. I'm going to answer a few of the questions from the last video, and the last video was wheel offset, getting the perfect stance and performance with the perfect rim. First question we're going to answer today is from Dylan Nelson. He starts with, I love the new Facebook group. It's filled with extremely helpful members, although I accidentally joined a very different group with the same name. Yeah, there is more than one. Dirtbag Mafia, unfortunately. I think we're the big one now, and I love the group too. It's awesome because I get so many questions, thousands and thousands of questions. Most of them don't get answered, but on this Facebook group, there's so many knowledgeable people that they can help fill in the blanks where, I mean, I only have so many hours in a day, so I can only answer so many questions. So it's a really nice tool to get good answers from knowledgeable people. And then, by the way, any thoughts on transverse leaf spring setups? Transverse leaf spring setups are cool. I think that I mean, that's a really old school design. I'm pretty sure my father-in-law's Model A is a transverse leaf spring. I don't remember exactly, but I know that they've been used for a long time. I think that it's a way that you could potentially make a system that is tunable and be leaf spring, because with normal leaf springs there's not much you can do in terms of tuning the way the axle acts throughout its travel. But with transverse leaf spring, because you have to have some control arms for it, it potentially could be a tunable system. I think that's cool, but you're really only saving money because you have to buy one leaf spring over buying a couple of coils. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to ride as good as coils at the end of the day. And since you're already going to have to do upper and lower control arms and whatnot, to me, I think that I would just do a normal 4-link or 3-link setup. But it is cool. I mean, if I saw a really well-built wheeler that had a transverse mount leaf spring in it, I would be asking them all kinds of questions, and I'd definitely be kicking the tires and checking it out. So I don't have enough experience to tell you that it's good or bad, but I do know that from what I know and understand about how all of this stuff works, I myself won't be using it in any of my future builds, but I do think that it is cool. Next question is from Benjamin Yusuf. Great video. I prefer wider stance. Will negative offset create a weak link? How much will be a safe number for it? I can't answer that. The safe number, how much can be a safe number, is going to be dictated by so many different things. You know, there are vehicles that have upper and lower kingpins, vehicles that have upper and lower ball joints. The upper and lower ball joints on a Dana 30 aren't going to be able to withstand the same amount of offset that we're talking about as a Super Duty, or any, or Dodge Dana 60 or anything like that, or Rockwells. Those can all handle much more stress and strain. So there's not really a magic number. I try to keep it as small as possible. To me, if you can keep it under like 4 inches, you're in good shape. If you keep it under 3 inches, you're in even better shape. So that's the ballpark that I go for. But I haven't seen any hard data on how much you can get away with for which axles or anything like that. So I would say that you can look at whatever the numbers are of a factory rig. So if you had an XJ and it was all bone stock, and you were going to decided you wanted to put it on 40s or go crazy or whatever, you could just measure whatever the factory offset is, or your factory scrub radius rather, on that XJ, and theoretically that should translate fairly well to a set of half-ton axles or a set of 1-ton axles. Understanding that you can get away with more with a half-ton axle or a 1-ton axle. But again, this is really complicated to answer, and I would say that you just want to keep it as small as possible. Next question is from Mark Fitzgerald. How do you clean up Sharpie from the concrete when you're finished? Same question about chalk lines. You've talked about clear coating. So I just use acetone or denatured alcohol. This is something that I don't know if Sharpie will stain some concretes. I did this throughout my entire plumbing career, 15 years of writing on concrete. I never had an issue where they couldn't get it up. And it's not something where you usually have to scrub either. You take acetone or something like that, wipe it on a rag, and you can wipe that stuff right up. In my shop, it's the same way. I don't think this is sealed concrete in here. I don't really know if it's sealed concrete in here, but yeah, I guess proceed with caution. It's a really good question. I've been on job sites where the superintendent is mad that we're writing on the concrete at all, but 90% of the job sites, the superintendent doesn't care. They're going to have a crew come through, and they're going to be treating the floor and sealing it if it's exposed anyway. So I don't know. This is kind of a tough question. In my shop, I've never once had a problem, and I don't think this is sealed concrete, but maybe someone who specializes in concrete can chime in and clear this up. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've got a whole bunch of fabrication stuff coming out here very soon. I've got to finish this Discovery. We need to go play with it in the snow. I cannot wait to get it off road. And then, of course, we're going to be starting the Liberty build, and I'm going to be continuing the Jeep truck. So a whole bunch of good fabrication stuff coming up here in the next few months. If you want to help support the channel, go to thedirtlifestyle.com. We have t-shirts, hats, neck gaiters, all kinds of stuff. And my wife is constantly updating that stuff. I think she's working on like a holiday sweater right now. So look for that. That'll be coming out really soon. Also, if you want to support us on Patreon, we have a link to our Patreon account on our website as well. If you want to follow me on social media, I'm @YourLifestyleNate. We'll see you next time.